Well, let's take you here now. The Gauteng High Court in Pretoria has nullified a Department of Home Affairs decision to refuse to grant asylum permits to 22 Afghan nationals. The 22 people reported to the Beitbridge Port of entry on the 16th of February and requested asylum transit visas. Now, in a statement, the Department of Home Affairs says it will abide by the court ruling and will take all necessary steps to give effect to the ruling and will deal with the asylum applications during the asylum process. Now, the Home Affairs Department had initially refused entry to the Afghans who are reportedly fleeing the Taliban. Meanwhile, Cabinet has noted with concern the decision by the court to grant the 22 nationals access to the country on asylum transit visas. All right, now let's discuss this. We are joined in studio by the Minister of Home Affairs, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi. Minister, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Now, given that this is a developing story, and of course, on a daily basis, we keep hearing new things, being said, and of course, notwithstanding what Cabinet has said. So, in your statement, you've said that you will abide by the court's decision. Is this still the case, and what are the next steps?
Well, initially, after the court ruling, which came out on Tuesday. That's the statement we issued. But subsequent to that is that quite a number of colleagues thought otherwise. And so we have decided to look for advice even outside the government, legal advice that is, on what we need to do under these conditions. Because remember, Unati, the judgment did not say we must give them asylum. They said we must give them permission to get into the country, go to the nearest refugee reception center, and then apply for asylum. And all the issues we raised in court, including the fact that they presented a document written in Arabic, which nobody can understand, which was not interpreted, and which in terms of the rules, I remember there's something called Vienna Convention, where when you get an official document from another country, it has to be authenticated. The judge then said, all those will be done at the hearing for asylum. So we are now starting to ask ourselves, what does it mean? Does it mean the floodgates are open? Does it mean that anybody who feels unsafe anywhere in any part of the world can head to South Africa? Because we have now learned that they left Afghanistan, got into Pakistan, then went to Qatar, left Qatar and entered Zimbabwe as people were on vacation via a visa on arrival, a visa for tourist visa in other words. And eventually when that expired, they went to Zambia, also a tourist visa. But here in South Africa, they are looking for asylum. I've now had a lawyer who representing them because he was asked on SABC earlier on by Sakina Kamwendo, ask why don't they go to America, because these are people who are saving America. And the lawyer said no, they are irritated because the Americans rejected them. So when Sakina interviewed me, I asked, if that is the case, America rejected them, then they come to South Africa. When you reject, they take us to court. Why didn't they take Americans to court? Seeing that they are actually an American NGO, why us?
Now, you are suggesting, of course, just given the evidence that you have in front of you, suggesting there's something more to it than just seeking asylum in South Africa. And in fact, I was listening to that radio interview, and one of the things that the lawyer said, Maurice Crespi, I believe his name is, representing the 22 nationals, is that, that they actually have been looking at South African laws, and it is, in fact, protected under South African laws to grant them asylum. So they are suggesting that maybe if South Africa doesn't want to, give them asylum, then you should change your laws.
Well, he was daring us. I heard that. I was listening to him before Sakina interviewed me. He was actually daring us. He went on to say, you have signed the United Nations Convention of 1951. Yes, that's true. The convention was passed in 1951 when South Africa was not regarded as a democracy or a sovereign state by the United Nations. So South Africa did not accede to that until 1996. But what I want to say is that there are many countries, many powerful countries, some of them around Afghanistan, in both Eastern Europe and Europe, and in Asia, countries which have acceded to that convention. We are not the only ones. That includes America itself. The only big country which I know have not acceded to that convention is India. So to say you have acceded to the convention, therefore, I found it unacceptable. But having said so, you may remember, or you might have picked up, that in June last year, when the ruling party had its policy conference, we drew a new document from the peace and stability of the ruling party, having been initiated by Home Affairs, to say we need to review our immigration laws in this country. There is something that makes us very vulnerable to the immigration laws. And I think that's what the lawyer was confirming, that, look, you are an easy way out of everything. All the others are intact. We can come in and do whatever you want. We want here in your country. That's what I heard him say. But later on during the same interview, you might remember when Sakina asked him, where are these people? They said they are in Zambia and they are reviewing whether it's wise to bring them in South Africa because of the national abroad that took place. And I said, I don't blame people for an abroad because they don't understand this, and they don't understand exactly what this whole thing means.
So, Minister, I mean, you know, we know now that they are represented by an American NGO. We know, of course, that the US has declined their asylum seeking status as well, or declined giving them that status. But should they go to a refugee center, given this court ruling, what are the next steps?
Well, we hear from their lawyer that the US has rejected. I didn't know before that interview at 12 o'clock that because the US government itself are the ones who mentioned, without any person asking them, they did release a statement, at least I remember that they mentioned that they are pulling out of Afghanistan, but they are worried that the people who are Afghans, who were helping them for the 20 years that they were there, might be persecuted, and it's better that they get taken to the US to be given permanent residence, not just asylum, permanent residence. At least that's what I remember. So I was not aware that subsequent to that, anybody tried taking them there and they were rejected. I suspect that might actually not be a true statement from these people who call themselves an NGO, or from the lawyer representing these people who call themselves an NGO, because we heard that from the lawyer and we're all hearing it at the same time. Now, as to what happens, in terms of the law, once you are given a permit in terms of Section 23 of the Immigration Act, that permit lasts only for 5 days. And it says within these 5 days, present yourself to the nearest refugee reception center. And we have got 5 of them, one in Musina, the biggest one here in Desmond Tutu Reception Center in Marabastad in Tshwane, the third one in Cape Town Metro, the fourth one in Gqeberha, and the fifth one in Thekwini. You arrive there. When you arrive there and announce yourself as an asylum seeker, you are then given a Section 22 permit. This one is in terms of the Refugee Act. The Section 23 permit at the borders is in terms of the Immigration Act. So you jump from one act to the other. And then from there, the Section 22 permit under the Refugee Act says you are here in South Africa for between 3 to 6 months while you are applying for refugee status. And that is renewable. We even have a kiosk in Marabastad, the Desmond Tutu Refugee Reception Center, where you can renew without even conducting the Department of Home Affairs. And you renew until you win your refugee status. If you get successful in getting that status, then you get a Section 24 permit. This one is Section 24 of the Refugee Act. It then means you are under international protection. If, on the other hand, the refugee status determination officer, the person who determines whether you qualify, if they refuse, then you have got 2 routes to follow for appeal. You can appeal to an institution called RASA, a statutory body, independent statutory body called RASA, the Refugee Appeals Authority of South Africa, or you can appeal to an institution called a standing committee SCRA, Standing Committee on Refugee Affairs, depending on what the Refugee Status Determination Officer said about your claim. If your claim is unfounded, then you apply to RASA. But if it is manifestly unfounded, then you go to SCRA. There's a difference between the two. Yes, manifestly unfounded means what you are saying does not happen. If you say there's war in my country and there's no such a war, that's manifestly unfounded. But unfounded means there is a war, but it has got nothing to do with you. It doesn't affect you in any way. You are just using it to get away. Then you go to RASA.
And of course, that is the concern. I mean, a lot of South Africans have actually raised that concern, in fact, to say, what are the 22 doing here, given, what you've described in terms of the countries that have been before they came and settled in South Africa? Another concern, of course, is that the NGO, through its lawyer, is saying that the lives of these men, of these people, in fact, are at risk should they be sent back to Afghanistan because of that threat by the Taliban. But then again, how do you allow then the safety of these 22 nationals in the country that is opposed to them being here? And another quick point, Minister, is the security then around these 22 nationals. Do we know who they are? And have we done background checks on them to satisfy yourselves as the Department of Home Affairs?
No, we didn't. We are also worried, like all South Africans. By the way, Unati, we are very worried. Ordinarily, we don't vet people when they come here to look for asylum. By the way, there are thousands of people in South Africa who have been asylum seekers, who are now under international protection. That is done during this process of applying for asylum, because then they must give their story. Who are they? Why did you run away from your country? Do you qualify? And all those. As to then, as an individual who's in the country, who are you and whether you are safe or not, that one is left to state security, because it's their job to check all of us, including me and you, by the way, what you are up to at any one time in terms of the security laws of the country. Now, there is this story that we can't send people back to Afghanistan. And I'm telling you, Unad, they left Afghanistan, they went to Pakistan. From Pakistan, they went to Qatar. From Qatar, they went to Zimbabwe. From Zimbabwe, they went to Zambia. Why is it us who must send them back to Afghanistan? Why all those countries they've entered couldn't have arrived there and applied for asylum? And well, their lawyer maybe gave an answer today. He said, we studied your law. Also meaning that this thing was planned. And I believe it was planned for the past 17 months, where people are planning. When people are on asylum, they don't plan like that. You are running away, if you understand what I mean. Like in Ukraine, they swore, in terms of the United Nations Convention, anybody who's running away from war can enter your country, or from persecution, or from a natural disaster, like in Turkey, there's an earthquake. If you are running away under those conditions, where do you get time to plan? Hire the most expensive lawyer, enter different countries, go on vacation for 30 days. There's no such a thing.
Minister, as we wrap up, so you earlier raised a very important point, saying that you have presented at the ANC National Conference last year, a paper on how to then handle immigration challenges that we are currently facing as a country. This particular case of the 22 nationals is probably one of those clear signs that something needs to either change or amended, but it has to be addressed.
Absolutely, you are right. And I'm happy now that you are saying that, because at least it means the media is now starting to understand. When I presented this document, some in the media either ignored it. Those who did not ignore it said, what is this? Are you not reversing human rights or democracy? Are you not moving backwards? Others even accused us of xenophobia. Now I'm happy that even the media understand why we said we want to review our immigration laws. We want to overhaul them. And actually, the conference agreed, even in December, they've adopted it, that we need to review the Citizenship Act, which we passed in 1995, the Refugee Act in 1998, and the Immigration Act of 2002. And this is a good example that must prompt South Africans. And we want them to participate in this.
How far are you, Minister, with that?
No. We start first, when you do review this act, you start first with an overarching policy. And unfortunately, to involve the public, you start with a green paper, then they give their inputs, then you shorten it into a white paper. Then once that is passed, then you start developing legislation. We are still at that level.
All right, Dr. Motsoaledi, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Really do appreciate it. Home Affairs Minister there, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi.